Yes, sir. Welcome to All Eyes on Cleveland. It is Thursday, February 25th, the year 2021, and Blue Wire Hustle proudly presents All Eyes on Cleveland. I'm your host, Brad Ward. Mikey is on the ones and twos. Tonight is another edition of Free Agency Files for you tonight. This began with a jump into Karl Joseph's free agency, and really became a look at the entire safety room, as it's a lot more complex than just Karl Joseph. And we're going to take a look at that tonight. Not long, maybe 15 minutes or so here, and take a look at what I think that the Browns can do or need to do to be competitive, to be competitors, legitimate competitors if with their defense. And the safety room is a bit of a problem, more than maybe we even realize. Let's dive right into this. I wrote an article this morning or last night, and it was published this morning at where I write at thebrownswire.com, USA Today Sports Media Group, on Karl Joseph's free agency. And we're going to take a look at that here. And just take a peek at what, I don't know what that is there, but we're going to take a peek at that article and what potentially here the Browns can do to upgrade that room, because it's certainly something that they need to do, and you'll see what I'm talking about more as we dive in here. Let's go ahead and do this. See if we can get this right. All right, how about that? And jump over here. And there it is. Wonderful. Picture went away, but that's okay. So this is something that I dove into today with the article on Karl Joseph. And this whole thing started with Andrew Berry last offseason, in his first offseason as GM of the Browns. And he was aggressive on the offensive side of the ball, as we know, but signed 7 one-year deals in 2020, and one of them was Karl Joseph. It was actually one of the deals that I was somewhat excited about him getting to. And, here you get the welcome. Joseph gives us a hard hitter and experience at safety. Now, Joseph was signed to a one-year deal worth $2.5 million in hopes that he would fit in as one of the Browns starters at safety. He was sidelined during camp. He had off-season foot surgery, but was ready to go when week 1 came around. He injured his hamstring in week 3, played anyways in week 4, but then missed 3 of the next 6 games, as you see here, and was on the field for just 36 snaps during that span. So missed a good portion of football there. He played his best football when positioned up in the box. As we know, he had 54 tackles on the season, despite coming up with some key plays during the Browns' run to the AFC divisional round. He was inconsistent at best in coverage. He finished his season with a career low Pro Football Focus or PFF grade of 54.7. So if we look at this a little bit closer here, here's the statistics. He played in 14 games. And you see he took 61% of the snaps, 67 tackles, 46 solo, 1 interception. And a look at his PFF grades here. Now, this is where it gets kind of different. Now, one thing you have to realize about Karl Joseph is that he was the 14th overall pick in the draft in 2016 to the Raiders. So when the Raiders took him, they thought he was going to be a stud, right? Absolute stud. And he came in and did okay. He actually graded out pretty well, 16, 17, 18, and 19. The problem when you dig into it a little bit deeper, is right here, this coverage grade. So he plays up in the box very well. He's 27 years old, 5'10", 205, went to West Virginia. You can't see it over here, but it does say first-round pick, 14th overall. Browns wanted him to be a starter. His lowest grade, as you see here in 2020, 54.7, is a poor grade. He missed a considerable amount of time in the middle of the season. Now, it's kind of hard for people to grasp this totally because one of the things you think of when you think of Karl Joseph is you think of him making some big plays, right? You think of him making a big tackle here, an interception. He was big in their run into the playoffs. He jumps on the fumble that goes over Roethlisberger's head, right? And all that stuff. But in reality, he's very, very poor in coverage. And in today's NFL, if you can't cover, you're not, I don't really care how spectacular you are against the run or how aggressive he was against the run. His poor coverage is an ultimate letdown for the Browns, and what they thought they were getting better, I would say, when they signed him to this deal, or hoped that they were getting better when they signed him to this deal. So let's take a look here, and we'll go jump back to this article real quick here. This is important. We'll get to that in a second here, but when you talk about his future with the Browns and just their look at the room as a whole here, it's important to look at the rest of the room with him. So before, Grant Delpit, Jim Thorpe award-winning safety, lost for the season to a torn Achilles tendon in the truncated training camp. The Browns did improve their safety room when they traded for a fifth-round pick to the Jaguars for Ronnie Harrison Jr., okay? So Ronnie Harrison Jr. is really the sole light or at the end of the tunnel here, or the sole bright spot. But if you look at anything beyond Ronnie Harrison, it gets pretty ugly. If you look at Karl Joseph was ranked 75th out of 94 safeties. You see the grades here. The coverage grade, 49.1. You keep going down the list. Now, only 94 safeties qualified here, right? At number 88, Andrew Sendejo. Look at those grades. 41.6 coverage grade, okay? Sheldrick Redwine, even worse, at 90 out of 94 eligible safeties, and another terrible coverage grade. Combined, these three guys, so when you take a look at Joseph, Sendejo, and Redwine, and when you're looking at Joseph and Sendejo, that's a lot of starting snaps right there. Sendejo took 999 snaps for the Browns, which is terrifying because he was so bad and so poor, and he almost took 1,000 snaps for this team. Redwine took 331. You see Joseph took 781. And combined, all those together, about 2,000 snaps right there. That's the majority, of your snaps at safety. In your coverage grade between all three of them doesn't break 50. Between Joseph, Sendejo, and Redwine, your coverage grade doesn't break 50. And that's a problem. So you look at this room, it's actually kind of shocking that they were able to go out and win 11 games with their safety play and their coverage from their safeties as poor as it was. It really is kind of shocking. These are guys they depended on. You see it here again. Redwine, 47.8 in coverage. Sendejo, 41.6 in coverage. Joseph, 49.1 in coverage. You see how good Ronnie Harrison was across the board. But, he only took 389 snaps. The rest of the snaps at safety were taken by these three guys generally. And I mean, it's not like they were good elsewhere either. Their overall grades are poor, 41.5, 44.4, 54.7. All of these guys were bad. You see here a little jump up here where you have Karl Joseph was good against the run. And we know that, and we talked about that. But that's not good enough. Him being good against the run wasn't good enough when you're talking about all these snaps taken. All of them but 389 taken by guys that can't get above a 50 grade in coverage. And that led me, when I started this article, to going, man, this whole room needs revamped, right? So let's talk about what we know about Joe Woods and what he wants to do going forward with this room. We know that the first-year defensive coordinator revealed early on his intentions to use 3 safeties, and this is a quote from him prior to the injury to Grant Delpit last offseason. I would like to transition into a dime system, but it is going to be something that is going to take time to get into just because of getting their reps. Eventually, I would like to have a nickel package where we have 2 linebackers on the field, but also to create better matchups and be a little bit more diverse in our scheme. I would like to get to a dime package where we are putting an extra safety on the field. 3 safeties. 3 safeties is the trend of the NFL, right? Diversity. The ability to guard tight ends in the pass game. The ability to line up better when teams come at you with variations and different looks, and that safety that can play the run and cover in the pass as a third safety on the field presents a lot of problems for offenses and alleviates huge matchup problems that offenses try to get defense into. They're going to try to stress defenses by doing that, but by putting that third safety on the field, teams in the NFL are having success doing that because it helps your matchup. It's all over the field, especially if you can play against the run that way. So let's take a look at this. So obviously, let's talk about what the Browns have here, okay? Obviously, moving forward, the Browns have Ronnie Harrison, who was the 9th best safety out of 94 eligible at PFF. Good grades across the board. Great trade, 5th round pick. We have Ronnie Harrison. He's a starting quality safety. He's versatile. He can cover. He can play the run. He can pass rush. He can do it all. He's a great pickup for the Browns. You have Grant Delpit, Jim Thorpe Award winner. You spent your 2nd round pick on him. Looks to be like a stud. 6'3", 203 out of LSU. He's a dog, right? Torn Achilles puts a big question mark next to his name. But you would like to look at him as a starter, right? You would say he's a starter, starting caliber safety moving forward for the Browns. Other than that, you have Karl Joseph, you have Sendejo, and you have Redwine, who's still on his rookie deal. Sendejo and Joseph, we know, is a free agent. Sendejo is also gone in free agency. Let's look at whether Joseph is going to stick around or not. Now, this is Spot Track, and this is inaccurate. $8.2 million average annual salary is what they came up with, and it had to do with age of guys and performance, and you can see their kind of breakdown here. But I know that, they said after adjusting the above contracts, if you signed Joseph at his current age 27, a linear regression is performed, providing us with the following initial value: a 3-year deal worth $26.5 million at 8.2 per year. Now, as I said in my article, and I'm saying now, that's way high and inaccurate, and I don't know. I'm sure, though, that'll be adjusted. But his actual market value we're looking at probably somewhere between the veterans minimum and $2 million a year for Karl Joseph. So do the Browns want to bring him back? I don't hate Karl Joseph. I just know they need to get better. If Karl Joseph has a spot on this team, it's as a depth piece, right? If he wants to come back at the vet min or maybe $1 million or a 1.5 with an incentive in there to get him to like $2 million, and he's going to be your fourth or fifth safety on this team, I'm cool with that. But otherwise, if you're bringing him back to play one of those top three roles, then no, I don't want to do that. And I don't think, and I wrote this in my article here, I do not think the Browns will likely bring him back. He would only provide depth, and even that scenario, I think it's probably unlikely. And we're going to get to how they fix this room. So ultimately, the approach then, if we look at Woods and his three safety approach, and we know that's his intention and what he wants to do, is the Browns need 3 starting caliber safeties. They do. And you can mark down Ronnie Harrison as one. I think you can look at Delpit as potentially being one, but you need another one. And you look at it 2 different ways. A, he wants to play with 3 safeties on the field. Joe Woods does. So we need another starting caliber safety. And 2, or B, Delpit is a little bit of a question mark. Torn Achilles. We don't know what his availability is going to be. We don't know when exactly he's going to be back. But, he would probably, just in case, want to bring in the Browns are going to want to bring in another safety that can start and is a high-level guy. They need to improve the back end of this defense badly, as you saw the coverage grades that I laid out for you. And that's probably a little bit surprising. I was shocked when you really, it shouldn't have been shocking, but when you really look at it as a whole, those coverage grades are appalling. It's a wonder how they won 11 games in a playoff game with these 3 guys taking the majority of the snaps at safety. So we know that likely everybody is gone except for Harrison and Delpit and, of course, Redwine. Now, Redwine's spot on this roster for me, and let me just be clear about this, I don't like him as a player. I think he plays timid, and he's was at times probably worse than Sendejo. At least Sendejo got in the right spots at times. Both very reactionary, never anticipatory, and I'm not real high on him. If he goes into camp, or when they go into camp for the 2021 season, and I'm going to lay this out for you here as we go here, but he should be the 6th safety on the depth chart. And we'll show you why that should work out as it is now. So we know we've got Harrison. We know we've got Delpit. We need another starting level safety. Let's take a look at the open free agent market. Okay. You're listening to All Eyes on Cleveland. This is a free agency files fixing the safety room. Started as a Karl Joseph free agency deep dive, but it became a whole fixing the room situation that we're getting into here tonight on All Eyes on Cleveland. So if you look at the best guys here at the top of the free agent class, Justin Simmons, he's going to, I think they're going to franchise tag him. He's a very good candidate for it. Anthony Harris, you are going to see linked to the Browns everywhere because of this, Minnesota, right? And the Browns head coach to link to Stefanski and some of his staff. Now, don't get me wrong. This guy's a dog. He is a very, very good player. The reason I did not list him in my article is because he took a major step back last year. You see the grades here, 89, 91. Incredibly, he was the best, highest ranked safety in 2019 in the entire league by PFF, but took a major step back to 38th. You see his grade go down to 66.2. Now, what's the reason for that? It could be explained. I mean, the Vikings defense as a whole took a step back, so that could be a part of it. But if they chose to go this route, I wouldn't be mad. He's obviously going to be a really good player, and he's going to command in that $13 to $15 million. He's going to be right there at the top of the free agent market for safeties. But yeah, I didn't list him because of the drop-off. That scares me a little. You wonder why, right? You wonder why. But he, as it says here, he should be primed for a big deal. I really like Marcus Williams. He's my top guy. He should be the Browns' top target, in my opinion. He should range anywhere from $13 to $16 million in free agency. This is a guy that is, as it says here, we'll read from this. This is from Pro Football Focus. Williams has ranked near the top of the league in every significant category for safeties. He has a coverage grade that ranks in the 90th percentile. Coverage grade in the 90th percentile to go with the highest rate of forced incompletions. Williams is also solid run defender with the skills to fit as a free safety in any scheme. A diverse guy that can do what the Browns want him to do. He can start. You don't have to rush, delp it back. If you started with Marcus Williams and Ronnie Harrison back there, that's a great duo to start with. And then bring Delpit along, and then you've got those three on the field with one of them playing that Viper or hybrid role in the dime three safety look that Joe Woods wants to implement. That makes a lot of sense. This investment makes a lot of sense. You're improving the room a ton over last year by just acquiring the one player, and then you're also allowing yourself to run that dime three safety look that he wants to run. He did run it at the end of the year, but he ran it with a combination of Redwine, Harrison, Sendejo, and at the very end a little bit of Harrison, Joseph, and either Redwine or Sendejo, and it actually worked pretty well when they did it. So you can imagine if they had a stud like Williams in there. Now, this is a significant deal here. I don't know, and we'll find out more. I have the guy from Spot Track, the head guy at Spot Track, coming on next week is going to be all about the salary cap and examining the salary cap in 2021 and how the lower cap is we're going to get some serious answers, affect these deals. I don't know how it'll affect his deal if you can get a guy like this on a shorter deal because he doesn't want to negotiate his long-term deal in a year where the cap is down at $180 to $185 million. When it's going to go right back up when the TV deals hit in 2022. So a lot of guys may take one-year deals. That's kind of something that has been hinted at. We'll dive into that more next week. But the Browns are in position. They could offer him a long-term deal. They have enough money to do so, and Marcus Williams would be worth it. Some people are going to tout Marcus May. He's a good player, certainly wouldn't be mad at it. But the other guy that I really, really like is Joe Johnson III, right? He's gonna command money probably in that $12 to $14 million range. Johnson, and when you look at both these guys, both these teams, the Saints can't afford to keep Marcus Williams, and I don't think that the Rams can afford to keep John Johnson III. Okay. You talk about another guy that excels in coverage, and that's what my focus has been on all of this. You have to get guys that contribute better and can cover. He is a dominant cover safety. He is 85.6 coverage grade, ranked fourth best among safeties during the regular season, making him making the third time in 4 seasons that he was above 84.9. Johnson is PFF's third highest graded safety with a total grade of 85.6. So you're talking about the full package with him and the full package with him, and you're paying for it. Probably going to pay, $12 to $14 million a year for 3 to 4 years for either of these guys. Now, the Browns will structure that so they can get out after 2 years. But either way, they'll get their guaranteed money up front in the first 2 years. But either way, the next 2 years are the years that you want to go for it, right? The next 2 years are the years where Baker money is not on the books yet. So applying this kind of a contract is feasible for the next 2 years. And if you need to bail on that contract going into Baker, the first year that Baker's money hits, then you can do so. But this times up well in a 4-year deal with John Johnson III or Marcus Williams. It'll be structured in a way that there's an out after 2 years, and the guaranteed money will be paid out. And you would have gotten 2 years out of these guys in their prime. Let's look at their ages, because we know that the Browns look at age of guys. Marcus Williams, 24 years old. John Johnson III, 26 years old. Prime safeties to add with Delpit and Harrison. There's Xavier Woods on here. Malik Hooker has been mentioned. I've seen at some other places. Hooker would be a nice depth piece. He's only going to command a couple $1 million a year because he's been dinged up and injuries, and he tore his Achilles. He's not going to make a ton of money. This is a prove-it year for him. This is where I would say the Browns' plan should lie. You have to get another starting caliber safety. I want one of these two guys. I want Joe Johnson III or Marcus Williams. I think you should add another safety in free agency. That's right, 2 of them. One of these value guys I'm about to show you. And you could throw Malik Hooker in there if you want. But these guys right here are my 2 guys that you could add as your 4th safety, right? Then you draft a safety. That's safety number 5, okay? Now, Sheldrick Redwine, who was taking significant snaps for you last year, is all of a sudden your 6th safety in the room, and you've gotten much, much better, and Joe Woods can attack with the scheme that he wants to. Former first-round pick Keanu Neal is going to command somewhere between $3 and $5 million on the open market, in my opinion. He is more of a box safety, but played in a similar scheme to what the Browns did, a lot of cover 3. He is very, very good around the line of scrimmage. In the middle of the field, he can cover. Like he does, as it says here, he's very rangy, can cover those speed routes up near the line of scrimmage. I like Neal a lot as your 4th safety. As a guy that can play a role on maybe, you're in that dime look, maybe you throw Neal out there on a rundown, right? He can still cover the short stuff, still play with the tight end. He works into some of the sub packages. I like this guy for that role, to get on the field some, but really be there for depth. Love this guy. Jaquiski Tartt, San Francisco 49ers, make the connection to Joe Woods, played under Joe Woods, knows the scheme. He's athletic, he's versatile, can play both safety spots. I liked him a lot. I liked him better than these grades say. My eye test says he's better than that. But $2 to $5 million probably on the open market, 2 to 4, 2 to 5 on the open market to add your 4th safety as a guy in Jaquiski Tartt. Love his game. Would love to see him added to the Browns. And it makes sense. He knows the scheme. He knows Joe Woods, knows the expectations, and he's a damn good player. You bring him in as your fourth safety. He gets on the field in certain sub packages. I like that a lot. So now you're looking at a room with one of these top two guys, Williams, Johnson. You can even throw Harrison there maybe, right? One of these guys that you pay somewhere between $12 and $14 million a year for 4 years with an out after 2 years so you can get him off your books before Baker money hits. Now you've got a stud safety to go with Ronnie Harrison and Delpit, and you can really, Joe Woods can really get creative with Delpit. Have him all over the field, doing all kinds of stuff, throwing different looks at defenses. That's what he wants. He wants diversity on the field. He wants to be able to give different looks. He wants to be able to guard tight ends without having to put linebackers on them. He wants to have guys that can cover better than he had last year, so he is not restricted to playing zone all day. I know Joe Woods is going to play a lot of zone. He's going to play cover 3. He's going to play cover 4, and that's fine. You have to do that in the NFL. But you also have to challenge guys with man-to-man sometimes. And adding these guys and Ronnie Harrison and getting Delpit back and adding depth with one of these guys gives you the immediate ability to threaten people with man-to-man. Of course, the corner room is going to need some help too. But we're talking about safeties now. We're talking about safeties guarding the slot, guarding tight ends, taking away that stuff that has killed the Browns, over the middle stuff for years. Killed them last year. You saw the coverage grades that we were running out there. So, Keanu Neal, Jaquiski Tart. I like Tart better actually for this fourth safety role. I think Neal's probably a little bit better of a player, but more of just a box safety. Tart's a little more diverse, can play either spot. So you have him there at depth as a guy that can step in at free or strong. Same thing with Delpit, same thing with Harrison. Really kind of same thing with Williams. All of them very diverse, very good cover guys, very good players in general. Then you add a guy in the draft as some sort of a succession plan. As you see some of the rest of the names on this list, Deron Harmon, Trey Boston, Rashawn Jenkins. There's old Tayshaun Gibson, former Brown, 30 years old now. Earl Thomas, long in the tooth. Bradley McDougald, 30 years old. Wouldn't hate him as a depth piece. Played in that cover 3 Seattle press bail that Woods runs. Jalen Mills down there is the last guy in their PFF's top 200. Last safety in PFF's top 200. He's only 26 years old, but I like the other guys better. Not a lot more money. When you can pay a couple more $1 million a year for these next 2 years to get a much better player, that makes a ton of sense. These are the 2 years that you have that room to go for it. So there's my lay it out for you. Karl Joseph, for me, is out the door. He can't cover. You need somebody that can cover. You're bringing back Ronnie Harrison. You're bringing back Delpit. But you need to give Delpit time, and you need to add a third safety starting caliber to fit into what Joe Woods wants to do. So you add a John Johnson III, you add a Marcus Williams, maybe even an Anthony Harris. Despite him taking a step back last year, he's still a good player. Pay that money. It's not going to be on the books when Baker money hits. You'll be able to get out after 2 years. Then you add some depth with a Neal or a Tart. You draft a guy at safety, maybe later in the draft. Now you're going into camp, and your terrible Sheldrick Redwine is the 6th safety on the draft on the depth chart. That makes a lot of sense to me. I did a fan poll on this as I sent out the PFF grades, so everybody would take a look at this here and give me your thoughts on Karl Joseph. And people like Karl Joseph. 65.6 percent of the fans want to keep him. I understand why. The guy made big plays. The guy played gutsy. He's a big hitter. Cujo. They called him out in Oakland, now Las Vegas with the Raiders. I mean, I get why you like Karl Joseph, but he can't guard a door in coverage. And that has to improve for the Browns as a whole. You've been listening to All Eyes on Cleveland, watching All Eyes on Cleveland tonight. There's the fan poll. The last thing I wanted to hit on is we've seen going around Twitter a lot are the Browns guardrails, right? Somebody took a picture of it off the desk. Now, this has been going around for a couple of years, but it's back kind of in play because, Deep Podesta, right? The analytics thoughts here. And I went against a couple of these rules, right? And the first one, the one I went against was don't pay for depth. Now, I think there's an exception to that. And the exception to that is when you have the depth that you have is terrible. And you need to add multiple pieces to reset that room. And there's a question mark around a guy like Delpit who you expect to clearly be a part of your future, right? You expect him to clearly be a part of your future. But there's no guaranteed timeline for him or how he's going to come off of that injury. And you don't have time to mess around because we're in that window now, Browns fans. So I think you add that, and it makes sense as well because that's what Woods wants to do, and you appease him by adding that high-level safety. You add a value-level safety for depth. It says don't pay for depth, but you're going to pay for a little bit of depth here, in my opinion. Not too much, though. Key positions, quarterback, cornerback, pass rushers, offensive tackle, quarterback, keep investing. So just a look at the free agency part of the guardrails here, and that's the one rule I wrote. Age is important. Age is important. Use free agency less and less. Yeah, as we move away from 21 and 22 to Baker's extension, Chubb's extension, potential Wyatt Teller extension, potential Denzel Ward extension, if he can prove that he can stay on the field for 14 games a year. That's all I want, 14. If he can do that, extension. As we move towards that phase of this, you're talking about really having to have a succession plan in place through the draft. And I think Barry will do a great job drafting, and I think you can address a lot of the Browns' defensive issues in the draft. But I do think it needs to be complemented, especially this year and next year, with free agents. And in this safety room, without adding two free agents and a guy in the draft, you're in a bad spot or an unknown spot. And in order to do what your defensive coordinator wants to do to be most effective on defense, you need to add another high-level safety. And if you are worried about Delpit at all, and you don't want to be in a situation like last year where Redwine's on the field or a guy like Andrew Sendejo takes 999 snaps for you, then you need to add some depth. $3 to $5 million is worth it for me. There it is. That's how I fix our safety room going into 2021. And I think that's how you have to do it if you want to be a legit contender. And I feel strongly about that. Let's see here. I hope that you guys enjoyed tonight's deep dive into the safety position. I went a little bit longer than I thought. Passionate about that room and how they can fix it. It all kind of comes together if you talk about what Woods wants to do, the guys on the market, the guys coming back. You've been listening to All Eyes on Cleveland, watching All Eyes on Cleveland. If you're watching, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And hit the little bell next to it. Make sure it tells you every time we're coming on the air with awesome content. We have a packed schedule next week. Salary cap week. Next week, I've got the guy from Spot Track. I've got all kinds of guys lined up. I've got one on Monday, one on Tuesday, one on Friday. All focused on the salary cap, how it's going to affect the Browns, how it's going to affect teams in general, players in general. Are we going to see one-year deals? Are we going to see mercenaries? Are we going to see guys going after it for 1 year because they don't want to negotiate their long-term deal? I know if I was coming off my rookie deal, I wouldn't want to go negotiate my long-term deal on the 1 year the cap is $20 million lower. I would want to wait till the TV money hits the next year and everybody's flush. The market's going to change from 1 year to the other, so maybe we see a lot of one-year deals this year. We're going to ask the experts next week. We're going to get the answers for you. This has been All Eyes on Cleveland, a Blue Wire Hustle production. I hope you enjoyed it. The Karl Joseph deep dive, but really fixing the Browns safety room, making sure that they are competitive enough to take it the distance next year. This is a 2-year window before that quarterback money hits, before those extensions hit, that you have to take advantage of if you're the Browns. Andrew Berry knows it. I know he knows it. I know they'll be aggressive. I expect this to be a fun free agency, a fun draft period. We'll be with you all the way through it here at All Eyes on Cleveland. For Mikey on the ones and twos, a spectacular job tonight. My name is Brad Ward. This has been All Eyes on Cleveland. And with that, we are out.